You're out there in the wild with nothing but your wits. Night falls fast, and you realize you need to find food. Knowing which plants are edible can mean the difference between a long night or a full belly, but it's crucial to positively identify any plant as edible by consulting field guides or an expert before consuming it. By the end of this, you'll know how to safely identify and forage wild greens year-round, adhering strictly to local laws and seasons to avoid accidentally harming yourself or protected species. First things first, what do you need? Nothing fancy, just your eyes, hands, and maybe a small knife. When foraging for wild greens, look for plants with leaves that are typically green in the season you're foraging. However, color alone isn't enough to determine edibility. Some edible plants can have red, purple, or shiny leaves depending on their species and environmental conditions. Edible plants often do not have thorns or spines, but this is far from a definitive identifier. Always positively identify any plant with a field guide or an expert before consuming it, as many deadly lookalikes exist that cannot be safely distinguished by casual observation alone. Now, let's start with the basics. Walk quietly through an open meadow or forest edge where you can see plenty of plant life. Don't move too fast. Take your time to observe and identify plants carefully. Remember, it's crucial to positively identify any wild plants as edible using field guides or consulting with experts, never relying on folklore tests or assumptions. Laws regarding foraging also vary locally, so be sure to check them before collecting anything from the wild. Step 1. Find a promising spot. Look for areas where sunlight reaches the ground and plants are growing thickly. Avoid spots near animal droppings, standing water, or human waste, as these can indicate contamination. You want clean, sunny patches, but remember that identifying edible wild greens requires positive identification with an expert or field guide. Never eat any plant unless you're absolutely certain of its identity. Step 2. Identify basic patterns. Notice which plants grow together in clusters. Familiarize yourself with common edible species and their environments. They often appear in groups rather than singly. While dandelions and clover may be widely recognized as generally non-toxic, it's crucial to positively identify any wild greens using reliable field guides or expert confirmation before consuming them. Always prioritize safety over assumptions. Now you're ready to get specific. If you have a knife, grab it. If not, that's okay too. But remember, identifying edible plants is serious business and must be done with absolute certainty using field guides or expert help. Never rely on folklore or guesswork. Always prioritize safety over convenience when exploring wild edibles. Step 3. Carefully examine the plant structure. Inspect leaves and stems closely. Some edible wild greens have smooth, round stems without milky sap, but this alone isn't a definitive indicator of edibility. If you break or crush a stem, and it leaves sticky residue or milky sap, proceed with extreme caution. Additionally, check for thorns. Prickly plants are often not safe to eat, but positively identify any plant as edible with expert guidance from a field guide before consuming. Always prioritize consulting an expert or authoritative source to ensure proper identification, as even seemingly benign plants can be dangerous without thorough verification. Subject: identify edible wild greens in any season. Step 4. Crush the leaf carefully. Take a single leaf between your fingers and crush it slightly. While some safe greens may have a fresh smell like grass or herbs, this test alone is not enough to determine edibility. If there's no scent at all, or if you detect a strong, unpleasant odor, exercise extreme caution. Always positively identify any plant with an expert or field guide before consuming it. Remember, local laws and seasons also apply to foraging. Ensure you're within legal limits when gathering wild plants. Now comes the tricky part. Positively identifying what you found using a reputable field guide or consulting an expert, as eating the wrong plant can be extremely dangerous. Remember, never rely on folklore tests like the universal edibility test, or if animals eat it, it's safe, as these are unreliable and potentially deadly. Always ensure that any wild plants, especially mushrooms, are positively identified to species level before consuming them. Step 5. Use familiar markers carefully. Look for leaf shapes and patterns that might suggest common edible plants, but always verify positively with a field guide or expert before consuming anything. Dandelion leaves are oval-shaped with pointed tips and no spines. Wood sorrel has 3 heart-shaped leaves, but remember, even if the pattern matches, never eat any plant without absolute certainty of its identity and edibility. What many people miss is the importance of timing and proper identification techniques. Plants can vary significantly throughout the year, and accurately identifying edible wild greens requires careful observation and expert knowledge. Always consult a field guide or seek advice from an experienced forager to ensure you positively identify any plant before consuming it. Remember, local laws and seasons also dictate what plants are safe to gather in your area. Subject: identify edible wild greens in any season. Step 6. Spring foraging. In spring, look for young shoots and new growth. Young plants are tender and full of nutrients, but must be positively identified by an expert or field guide to ensure safety. Common edibles like chickweed, wild garlic, ramps, and lamb's quarters exist, but always verify with a reliable resource before consuming any plant material. Spring is a great time to look for edible wild greens near trails and clearings where sunlight reaches the forest floor. But always positively identify any plant with an expert guidebook or local expert before consuming it. Remember that even in spring, you must follow all local laws regarding foraging, seasons, and protected species. Step 7. Summer identification. Summer brings larger, more mature plants. Look for established leaves that are still bright green and not wilted. Avoid plants showing signs of disease like yellowing or spots. Common summer edibles include stinging nettle, wear gloves due to its irritating hairs, and plantain, which has wide, oval-shaped leaves. However, positively identify any wild greens with an expert or field guide before consuming them to ensure they're safe and not a harmful lookalike. Remember that laws and seasons may restrict foraging in certain areas, so always check local regulations. Avoid wetlands during hot weather as they can be breeding grounds for harmful bacteria and fungi that may cause illness. Always positively identify any wild plants with a reliable field guide or expert before consuming them to ensure safety. Local laws and regulations also apply, so check your area's rules before foraging. Step 8. Fall gathering. Fall is a good time to gather certain wild greens, but always positively identify any plant with an expert or field guide before consuming it, as there are many lookalikes that could be harmful. Seek out late-season greens like purslane or wild mustards in sunny spots where plants stay green longer due to the warmer microclimate. Remember, gathering wild plants is subject to local laws and regulations. Always check them first. Avoid any plants showing signs of frost damage or wilting. Subject: identify edible wild greens in any season. Step 9. Winter scouting. Winter presents challenges but isn't impossible for finding edibles. Look under snowbanks or in sheltered areas near trees for evergreen herbs like pine needles, useful as teas when boiled with a thorough identification to ensure safety. Be extremely cautious with barks and roots. These can be difficult to identify correctly without expert guidance or field guides. Remember that positive identification is crucial. Never eat any plant part unless you're 100% certain of its identity. Always adhere to local laws and regulations regarding foraging in your area. When searching for edible wild greens, keep an eye out on the ground where plants may be hidden under fallen leaves. Remember, positively identify all wild plants with a field guide or expert before consuming them, as even common lookalikes can be dangerous. Always follow local laws and regulations regarding foraging in specific areas. Now let's talk about preparation. This is crucial. Step 10. Clean thoroughly. Once you've picked your greens, make sure they're washed in clean, purified water if possible. Remove all dirt and debris from the leaves carefully. Trim off any tough stems with a sharp knife or scissors, leaving only the tender parts for consumption. Remember to positively identify any wild plants with an expert guide or field manual before consuming them to avoid harmful lookalikes. Local laws and seasons also govern the collection of certain plants. Always check these regulations before foraging. Always purify water from streams, ponds, or other natural sources before drinking, even if the water appears clean and is flowing. Untreated water can carry harmful pathogens that may cause illness quickly, while consuming unidentified plants poses its own risks of poisoning. Make sure to use proper purification methods such as boiling, filtration, or chemical treatments to ensure safe consumption. Step 11. Boil for safety. Boiling is an effective method to reduce potential toxins and pathogens, but it doesn't eliminate all risks. Bring water to a full boil, then add the greens and simmer for at least 10 minutes. This helps kill harmful bacteria or parasites that might be present. However, positively identifying wild plants with certainty remains crucial before cooking or consuming them. If boiling isn't possible, cooking over hot coals until completely wilted can help reduce some risks, but always prioritize accurate plant identification and consult a field guide or expert to ensure safety. Before adding any wild plant to your meal, always positively identify it with the help of an expert or a reputable field guide. Do not rely on folklore tests like the universal edibility test or animal consumption as indicators of safety. Some plants that look similar can be deadly, so certainty is crucial for avoiding poisoning. Subject: identify edible wild greens in any season passage to fact check. Step 12. Test the taste and texture cautiously. While freshly cooked greens should ideally have a mild flavor, sweet or slightly bitter but not spicy or soapy, this alone is insufficient for identification. Never eat any plant without positive identification from a reputable field guide or expert, as some toxic plants can mimic safe edibles in appearance and initial taste. Always prioritize safety by consulting authoritative resources, and never rely on taste tests alone to determine edibility. Step 13. Monitor your body's reaction carefully. Eat only small amounts at first, about a mouthful, and wait for 15 to 20 minutes to check for any adverse effects such as nausea, vomiting, or diarrhea. If there are no negative reactions after half an hour, you can eat more cautiously. However, always positively identify plants with expert guidance and reliable field guides before consuming them. Never rely on casual identification methods. Additionally, be aware of local laws regarding the collection of wild greens in your area.